Winter slowly approached and covered the warmest parts of the snowy highlands in a thin blanket of snow. The town delta where you've been the past months seemed to be noisier than usual. People were talking about a caravan of miners that are here to excavate a rich isolite vein, a metal that is used to make tools that are harder than steel but lighter than wood. But they needed to retreat because a beast was protecting the area. You seek the town hall, hoping for a new quest that will pay out well. Entering the tavern, you hear a bunch of men drink and talk, complaining about the situation, but not minding a good drink and warm meal. You look around for the captain of the mining caravan, and you spot a mountain of a man, sitting at the far back of the bar. You take a seat next to him. His skin is thick and cracked like rocky leather, and around his neck hangs a bottle of sap, the same as you have.
So, you must be the local hunter. The town folk already told me stories about you. I hope you can handle this task as well. Let me explain what happened. My men and I were traveling up into the mountains. We encountered a fast bloodbeak. One was hungry for our cart pulling blood hooves. But the armor on the Red Horn and our assault with spears scared the giant predator away. We were slowly reaching our destination, exiting the Pikebear's forest and reaching the snowy highlands. We were there to excavate a rich vein of arolite. The pilfer found it and sold the location to us. But that son of a beast didn't warn us the giant brute was roaming the area. As we were building our temporary camp, we heard a loud crash echoing through the mountain range. It didn't bother us. We were used to hearing things of this sort. The noise traveled from far, far away the moment my men started hitting the rock where the arolite was spotted. A giant beast stomped into our camp. Before I had time to think, I turned and faced it head on and managed to hit its head with my pickaxe. But it broke immediately and left me open to attacks. The brute turned around and slammed me with its tail. My men told me that I got knocked out cold, but the worms protected my unconscious body. I tell you, that rockback was none too pleased with that little incident. He left our camp. I don't think he's gonna leave us alone for good. I don't currently have too much coin to offer. But the job is done well and done right. We can supply you with the best metal and ore my caravan can find. So what do you think? We have a deal?
You shake hands. Prepared and stocked up on blood, you head out into the mountain area of the snowy highlands. Entering the abandoned camp, you see a Grunkuts munching on the isolite ore. The hungry rockback turns around and faces you. The Grunkuts, also known as the Hungry Rockback, is a giant that feeds on minerals and tree bark. Roaming at the edge of the snowy highlands behind the Laerta forest, and is highly aggressive if it is encountered by anything in its territory. Let us learn more about this mountain-devouring beast. An area of rock and stone with minimal plant growth at the foot of the tall highland mountains is the habit of the Grunkuts, which eats away at the minerals and trees around it. The preferred ground is solid, supporting the heavy weight, and they will only roam in the Laerta forest in winter when the earth is frozen. Grunkuts will open up veins of minerals, eating the ore, sometimes even leaving spots open for miners and hunters to gather resources easily. But the sound of pickaxes hitting stone can attract the Grunkuts back. Grunkuts females are way larger than males, standing tall between 5 to 6 meters and reaching the length of 13 to 14 meters. Roughly weighing between 10 to 13 tons, males are 15 to 20% smaller, reaching the height of 4 to 5 meters and a length of 10 to 12 meters, with a weight of 8 to 9 tons. The Grunkuts is covered in scales that lay above a thick fatty layer, protecting the beast from rocks and boulders that fall from the mountain tops after ramming an ore vein open. Special osteoderms that run along the back and the tail of the Grunkuts excrete excess minerals that can't be digested, forming a rocky back that also serves as protection from incoming falling rocks. These back rocks also show the age of the Grunkuts. Having a covered back indicates an adult, where young Grunkuts show the bony ridges and subadults darker osteoderms and small amount of mineral growth. The special jaw allows the beast to crunch rocks into bite-sized chunks. 3 ball-point jaws rotate inwards, creating a destructive bite force, crumbling the minerals to digestive sizes, turning rock into gravel that gets slowly digested in the giant's stomach. The saliva of the Grunkuts prevents sparks and ignition in the minerals that can react explosively with each other. These are stored in a bursa behind the lower jaw. If the bursa is full, the mineral mix will be expelled in a glob of saliva. Males have a bigger bursa than females, using the explosive globs to blast mark their territory. The discoloration comes from the ash, soot and heat that darkens the scales of the male Grunkuts. If another male enters the territory, both males clash, creating an explosion that travels far and wide in the snowy highlands. Bulls always fight each other, in any season, but most fights are around spring, where the females show interest and seek out male territories to feast on the minerals. If 2 males collide, there is a high chance that the heat will melt off a layer of the enforced skull, forming a drop that falls to the ground and hardens. These called Grunkuts drops are highly valuable and are used in tool and armor crafting. The mating ritual of the Grunkuts is very primitive. A male sits down and lets the female rest on his back. The male then tries to stand up, lifting his own weight and the female's at the same time, showing strength and health to the partner. Succeeding at this act, the male will walk around the female, displaying his size and emitting a deep bellow. Speaking of bellows, the Grunkuts has some simple calls, like these deep rumbling bellows. Or the echoing calls. That scare off predators or other bulls. Grunkuts also clagger their ball jaws together if provoked, showing aggression against the target. If you hear this delightful sound, stay far away from this area. There is a chance that a fresh mineral glob can ignite itself and explode. After mating, the female will birth 1 or 2 grunklings after 10 months at the beginning or middle of spring. They will stay with her until they are bulky and big enough to stand their own ground. Grunkuts will eat and sleep most of the time. Male will fight each other from time to time, and females will roam the forest to feed their young. It is known that young Grunkuts will eat trees first and then switch to a rocky diet if they're big enough. Instead of eating the soft tips of the pike birches like the mudhuts, Grunkuts will eat away at the hardened bark and even topple trees over to eat the iron-rich roots. Luring in a Brukta that is expecting a blood hut but is encountered with a rocky bag charging at it. Sometimes even killing a Brukta in the process and consuming the hardened beak and skull. If old and big enough, Grunkuts will start eating ores and minerals. It was observed that they will tap their heads against rock and stomp their feet against the ground, sensing the different vibrations in the stone. That can also be the reason how Grunkuts always unearth the colonies of Onipta embedded in the mountains. Grunkuts are watched eating these bugs, even speeding up the eating process in the contrast to their slow rock munching. It seems like these hungry rockbacks can smell or sense the heat of the Onipta even if they are not in their colonies. Onipta are insects that burrow through stone and melt even the hardest metals to build their castles inside the mountains. These are normal workers that carry, build and supply the queen with mineral. Specialized rock crackers that burrow into cracks and expand their jaws to break minerals into smaller pieces. These are guarded by giant jaws from the warrior Onipta that fiercely protect others, their king and queen. The king is always close to the queen but serves one purpose and will get killed if he can't fulfill it. The queen produces eggs in a rapid time and heats up during the process, providing life and the warmth for the colony. If a queen is separated from the colony, she will stop the reproduction and only focus on generating heat as a self-defense mechanism. Queens are very valuable and can provide an endless heat source if kept fed. Slaying this mountain of flesh and rock is a hard and slow task. But locating a Grunkuts is not that difficult. They leave behind a lot of broken rocks and blast marks if it comes from a male. Slow and loud, they are spotted and heard from far away and will rarely choose flight first. If nothing is indicating that the Grunkuts is near, just using the time to mine ore or other valuable materials in the mountains, at the end it will lure in a hungry rockback. Most likely a male that is expecting another bull or a potential female in the spring. It is advised to not hunt Grunkuts during the mating season. The sound of fighting can lure in other Grunkuts, and fighting two at the same time is a guaranteed death. Tools useful for a Grunkuts hunt. Digging a pitfall can topple the beast, not expecting the ground to be soft and give way. The slow and sleepy nature of the beast can be exploited with sleep and calming herbs or venoms. Loud sounds and flashing lights are useless against adult Grunkuts, but can startle younger ones. Armor and weapon repair kits are highly recommended. The hard rocky skin will reduce weapon sharpness very fast, and the Grunkuts can break your armor if it lands bite attacks on you. Fire can ignite the saliva faster, detonating before the Grunkuts can, and maybe harming his insides, but it's useless otherwise. Corrosive effects are useful and can damage the armored beast by softening spots that are well protected. Prepared and ready to conquer this moving mountain, you need to be careful. This beast moves slow, but every attack is mass behind it, and could knock you out in a single blow. The huge weight and size contrast between male and female makes them behave differently in an encounter. Still using the same attacks but changing the frequency of them. The male, slightly faster than the female, will use less attacks that involve mass. The Grunkuts will use its head for most attacks, slamming and charging the hunter, using its weight to overpower attackers and swinging their hefty tail around. The rockback is not a carnivore, but its bite can be worse, grinding away armor and breaking bones. The nimble male will bite more, pick up stones to shatter them, creating a burst of sharp rocks, and expel mineral waste out of the bursa, either to create small flame explosions or big explosive body slams. Feeling like an indestructible tank, the Grunkuts still has some weak spots. The rocky material that grows from the shell can be broken off, creating soft open spots. The small arms, useless, are the rockback's biggest weakness. Breaking or cutting them harms the brute a lot. The tail can be also cut, making the Grunkuts not use tail-related attacks and let him turn slower if charging. Behind the lower jaw is the bursa, a pouch where harmful and easily ignitable minerals are stored. Breaking it will disable the explosive attacks, making fights against males easier. Mostly protected against blunt strikes, some spots are not so much protected. Like the bursa and the arms, these are areas where the heavy mace can deal a lot of damage. Piercing attacks will have a hard time penetrating the rocky armor. But the soft belly and the vulnerable bursa are a good target for great rapier users. The cleaving saw has no worry about hitting a weak spot, though the head and back will render the teeth dull, but all the other body parts can be ripped apart. Slashing sweeps against the arms and tail prove very damaging against the Grunkuts, and the chest is not much armored as the rest of the big brood. The resilient scales and hide of the Grunkuts are great to be turned into durable weapons and a heavy suit of armor. The armor is heavy and durable, but the legs flexible for fast movement. The upper body is made out of the hardened skull and dried and reinforced jaws, giving the hunter the opportunity to roll into attacks and deal bludgeoning damage to the target, and still providing mobility and high protection against blunt and ripping attacks. The skull of the Grunkuts and one of its whalebone jaws is smithed into a giant club. The chains, made of the tail scales and a aerolite mix, crafted to be rigid and durable for a heavy mace hunter. The great rapier is made of the same material as the heavy mace, but using the jaw as a guard and elongating the skull with heat and a mineral mix to form a deadly point. The hefty tail with its hardened scale was bent into a cleaving saw, giving the wielder a weapon that is not the sharpest weapon, but doesn't lose the edge so easily. Using the same part of the Grunkuts for the greatsword, for its size and weight the sword is surprisingly easy to swing and carry. The hungry rockback that roams the mountain foot of the snowy highlands encounters mostly miners that are on the hunt for minerals and ores. Its short temper and territoriality makes these ore eaters a danger for any human. But staying away from the mountain guarantees safety from the Grunkuts. It is a beast of enormous size and will make the ground shake with every step. Let's begin with the beast brief. Continuing with the beast roster for the Snowy Highlands, I was thinking about a big brute, a big beast that was ignoring the food chain mostly. Something that would scare off players from the mountainous areas if they are under-equipped. That beast had no real flora to eat, so I figured out an ore eater monster would work pretty well, so a geovore. Focusing on raw strength and mass, and kinda developing a tool to crunch rock and minerals. And with that also introducing maybe an explosive element attack, due to him consuming a lot of minerals and different other elements at the same time. For the Grunkuts I started with ballpoint paint sketches. At the time I was visiting family by train, so during that ride I was just sketching down different ideas. So I had time to think about the sketches during the 4-hour trip. First I was thinking about everything consuming gluttonous monster. That was a beast near the river, ambushing prey but also consuming rotting bark and trees. So kinda like a reversed beaver. Instead of blocking the flow of water, opening it up more that the rivers were harder to cross for potential prey. Then I tried a different approach, looking into beaks and shell-covered jaws. Within a few sketches I had a design going, still believable but odd enough to be turned into a beast. Back at home I started to make some full-body sketches, looking at Rhinus and Pachycephalosaurus, awful name, that one head-butting dinosaur. Instead of making a slim and fast beast again, I gave him mass and a tanky body structure, wanting to contrast the Bructa and giving this already done seasonal apex a harder prey. I played around with different head shapes, more pointy ones, and even one that was resembling a big giant eyeball, and the armor height from normal crocodile to plated bug-like growths. I decided to show that he is a rock-eating monster by letting the rocks grow from its shell, mostly on the back to protect the beast from falling boulders if it rams a mountain wall to get some tasty ore. The rendering process was very fast. I started with a rough block out of the form and shape, rendering out all the layering of the fatty hide on top of each other, and also give him some strong legs to show their ability to run and not lumber. After that, I started photo bashing some textures of lizards and rusting metal on top. The shells and scales are simply just pine cones. I overpainted also some parts of the area so it doesn't look too photo bashed. I would love to show the process, but the recordings are awful to watch. I spin and flip the canvas way too much and the time-lapse would be just unwatchable. Then I colored everything in. It gave the head part a color shift because friction will heat up metal and discolor it, like on an exhaustion pipe. The final piece turned out great and it took me only 2 days for the whole illustration from body sketch to the final. The male Grunkuts is basically just the female one. I reduced the saturation and colored in the more sud and ashy parts of the scales. The weapon designs posed a good challenge. The heavy mace was easy, just slap on the head on a stick, but it kinda felt odd until I sketched a chain handle and applied some more chains on the heavy mace itself. I liked the idea and even made a back view to show that the skull is also holding a jaw part. The first 2 designs of the greatsword turned out pretty mid. I was trying to make them feel more different to each other, which resulted in some odd, messy designs. But the third design was a banger. I used the tail and with some add-ons turned into the final design and I'm really happy with it. The cleaving saw was very difficult. Trying to cut a monster part and placing it on a stick, calling it a saw, was tough. But in the last attempt I really leaned into the saw part and made the design into one of my favorite Grunkuts weapons. The Great Rapier was odd, but a mix of jaw and head forged into a elongated tip worked out nice and didn't felt too odd. Every metal part came from a train, so kinda giving the Grunkuts the charging train element theme. Also, because I really like Barrow from Monster Hunter, he is one of my favorites. The armor was a roller coaster for me. After getting back from a project, I had done a lot of client work in a studio for the past 3 months and I was kinda burnt out on armor. The first armor sketches were live on stream and I was struggling the whole time. Somehow I managed to forget how to make Monster Hunter-like armor. The first thing I noticed was the anatomy was too correct. It felt like it was in the way of making fantasy-like armor. The stance was a little bit too stiff and too close to each other, making it very boring. So I changed it and the pose looked more interesting and the armor on top had enough room to breathe. Also, a big mistake was to slap on beast parts on top of the armor instead of looking for shaping the parts into the armor. Remembering that and reflecting on that, I made 3 more designs. Okay, 2 more. The first one still had some slap-on problems, but looked better, and the armor on the right side, which was the second one, turned out way better, and I just slapped on some more metal parts to kinda put everything together into like one design. For the sounds I used bison, a goat, and a frog. The bison for size and mass, the goat for the mountain area connection and ramming, and a frog because you kinda look toad-like for me. Thanks for watching. This video should have been a shorter one, but for some reason I had more lore for the Grunkuts than I thought. Also, I was insanely busy the past 5 months, doing big commissions and doing some work for 2 gaming studios, all under NDA. Also, Monster Hunter Wilds came out during that time, and it broke my heart. I'm crying. I really guess I need to stop being a fan of anything today, because at the end it will be destroyed. So, fuck this. Thanks to all the beautiful people who voted on my Discord for the Hungry Rockback. I'm glad I could cover this big guy. And also, big thanks to my buddy Sharp, who was voicing the captain from the mining caravan. That southern accent was pretty on point, I need to say. Sadly, the next piece will not be voted for because there are only 2 left that will be in the Snowy Highlands. And the last one is a special one, so the best one for last, I guess. So I will start working on that beast that dwells the lower foresty region of the Snowy Highlands, so I hope I get the video out as fast as possible. And a huge thanks to my handsome looking monthly supporters for this project on Coffee. Personal Wizard, Dress, Professor Oaks, Eric, Void Brush, and an absolute crackhead.
Michael, don't leave me here!
If you want to support this project, you can do so on Coffee, but like honestly, just watching and sharing the video is more than enough. But you can also choose these options, like give a like, subscribe, and love? Huh? What the fuck is this cringe option? Whoa, hey, okay, I see, no, let's not do that, okay? Hey.